So welcome to Profile 3 TV, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Oonagh Monahan from Alpha Omega Consultants. So Oonagh, thank you very much for taking time out to chat to us today.
That's totally very welcome.
Excellent. And you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about what you do and your background, please?
Sure. Well, I've been working in and with the food industry for probably about 20 years now. I started off as a scientist, as a microbiologist, and then specialised into food science and technology. And my very first job in the food sector was with Mr Kipling cakes in the UK. So I worked for Mr Kipling for a number of years, and then came back and worked in Ireland with Kerry Group for a few years. So I was quality manager with Kerry Group up in Monaghan. And I kind of took a detour for a little while, worked in pharma for a little while, but then I came back and have been working with small food producers for a very many number of years. And that's where my real love lies. I must say I do love the startup side of things, but I also work with some very big producers. And I set up my own consultancy in 2008. So I decided instead of working for somebody else, I had to do this for myself.
Incredible. What a wealth of experience. And you worked in Monaghan. I'm originally from Monaghan, so we've a connection there as well. So amazing. Do you find, or did you find the English, the UK market is very different from the Irish food market then you've experienced there and here?
It is. I mean, I suppose when I worked there, what struck me was how many people, or how much cake people ate. That was the one thing that really struck me. But I suppose the big difference, of course, was coming from Ireland, which at the time, you know, in terms of population size, there's a huge difference in population. Like they've got 10 times the population we have here. So it makes sense. But it's only when you began to see the scale of things, you realize what a large country the UK is, you know, compared to here, even though they're our nearest neighbour. But then when I came back to Ireland and worked for Kerry Group, most of the exports, so it was a turkey factory, it was Grove Turkeys in Monaghan, and most of the exports, most of the production every week went to the UK in turkey sales to Tesco, Marks and Spencer, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, everybody. So it was just a huge market. It's it's a really significant market, as everybody probably knows.
Incredible. And actually another connection, and I worked in Grove Farm as well, so it's amazing, a small world, but what to do. So what services then would you typically offer to a food company if they were looking for help?
Well, it depends on the stage of their development, really. I suppose like I would do a lot of work with small startups or pre-startups, even trying to help them work out what their idea is in detail. Like most people would say, I want to set up a food business because of their love of food or their love of baking or making food or growing food, and they want to try and commercialize that, but really have no clue how to go about it, or underestimate what's involved, or afraid maybe of asking the agencies or the authorities for help because they think that it might come down on them like a ton of bricks. But in fact, that's exactly what they should do. And then at the other end of things, I work with large companies like the Irish Bread Bakers Association. So that's Mr Brennan, Pat the Baker, Irish Pride, and Johnson Mooney and O'Brien. So I'm technical consultant for them. So I'm all about the white sliced pan, actually, when it comes to the bread for the big guys.
Amazing, excellent. So you're dealing with both sides of the market, which is incredible. So and I guess both different aspects of the market need help and different types of help. So it's really interesting you're involved in both. And do you think there's a lot of myths around food at the moment? Food is obviously in Ireland as a historically agriculture and farming country, but we're seeing a lot of news and a lot of stories come out in the media every single day. Do you think there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings?
There definitely are. I mean, I suppose the thing with the internet is that it's open for any person to put up their opinion. And the difficulty for the average person, I suppose, is to understand what's opinion and what is fact. And for me, I suppose my background is science. So if it's not based on evidence, then I'm not interested in hearing it really. And there's an awful lot about talk, around food. Some of it is kind of based on with the best interests, people's best interests in heart, but maybe a little bit misguided. So, I mean, to give you an example, I mentioned bread a minute ago. People are always saying, or you often hear that bread is bad for you, you shouldn't be eating bread, or you're trying to lose weight, you want to stop eating bread, which is all completely incorrect. I mean, and I am speaking as a technical consultant for the Irish Bread Bakers, so put my hand up and say, I'm saying this to be really honest about it. But like, there's no fat in bread. It's, as with everything, if you eat it as part of a balanced diet, it provides loads of nutrients. It's good for you. Only 1% of the population have actually got celiac disease, so they're the only percentage of the population that should avoid any kind of gluten. Everybody else can eat bread, no problem at all. And some people are probably borderline. I'm not a nutritionist, so I wouldn't say this for absolutely sure, but some people may be borderline and maybe mind their quantities, but it's not going to be bad for them as such. They just have to be careful with the quantity. But nobody's saying to you to sit down and eat a whole loaf at one sitting. You know what I mean? It's just about it's about balance and everything. And then, of course, there's an awful lot of sort of self-styled food experts out there and nutritionists, and some of them I would just always question their experience and their qualifications to make sure that you're getting really good information and there's not any kind of agenda there.
Yeah, no, it's amazing advice. And in regards to bread, oh my word, good Irish upbringing. I was brought up on bread, and from wheaten to loaves, the toast. Oh, I don't know how much I would consume in a day. I love it. That's
I mean, I had a conversation with somebody just last week actually about bread, and they were saying, I don't like the sliced pan and I'm not going to eat by that anymore. And I said, well, that's down to personal choice. I mean, it's down to taste and flavor, and like the sliced pan isn't trying to dress itself up as anything it's not. It's just bog standard everyday sliced pan. That's all it is. But people shouldn't be concerned that it's not good for them, even though there may be additional ingredients in there. They're all perfectly safe and good for you, and everything in moderation. That's what I'd say.
I totally agree, and it's very interesting. You mentioned the I guess there's a new wave online, and I would call them, I guess I refer them as the Instagrammers, who are advising on health and fitness and well-being, and especially food that you eat. And I guess we've seen in the industry that haven't been overly transparent over a number of years, that maybe what they're saying online is being promoted or paid. So it's really interesting to see what's happening. It's only good as I guess people become more aware of that. But back to what you say, it's important to get the right advice, and there's too much information online, so it is hard to distill it.
Yeah, it's very confusing for people. It really is. And there's so much coming at you, and you're just trying to do your best. Most people are just trying to do the best for themselves and their families, and they really don't know who to believe at this stage. So what I'd always say is just kind of trust your instinct, I suppose.
Amazing. And you actually wrote a book around starting a small business as well.
I did, yes. I can hold it up for you happily.
Brilliant.
Here. There it is.
Excellent.
Money for jam.
Money for jam, brilliant. And who's the target audience for the book, and what could they expect to find in it?
Yeah, well, what I found was, I do a lot of mentoring through the local enterprise offices and private mentoring. And what I found was, I've mentored over 300 individuals over the last 10 years in business. And that's only me. I'm sure there's lots of other people mentoring around the country. But what I found was that everybody had the same basic questions: where to start, where to begin, how to go about it. And they needed some structure. So I used to put together kind of an action plan of a list of steps they would have to take. So I love this plan. I love having a plan and having steps and having target outcomes and all that kind of good management stuff. But it does help people keep themselves straight. And every time after a mentoring session, I'd put together a pack of information for the individual and kind of tailor it for them. And I thought, I wonder, should I have this ready for them? Instead of trying to do it every time, I'd kind of put packs together. So I started doing that. And then I began to think, I'm kind of giving this away. Maybe I should try and commercialize this myself and take my own advice. So I did some research to see whether there were any books out there that were startup books specifically for the food sector. And there weren't any. Not even in the UK, not really anywhere very much. There was one in America, but very much based on American legislation, but nothing that would cover the EU, and certainly nothing in English. So I contacted a couple of publishers. I decided I didn't want to self-publish. There's a lot of self-published books out there. And as you know, with marketing, you have enough to do with trying to write the book, never mind self-publish it as well and distribute it. So I approached a couple of publishers, and one of them bit pretty much straight away, and that's Oak Tree Press in Cork. And the publisher is a man called Brian O'Kane, and he has a book called Starting a Business in Ireland, which is kind of the go-to book for people who are starting up. And that book has been published several times over the last 20 years. So he did the same piece of research that I had done and satisfied himself that there was nothing else out there, and that there would be a demand for this. So we had a meeting, and he took me on, and that's how the book got published. So then, of course, I had my own deadline, and I had to get everything done and get it submitted to him by different dates. And that was good. It kind of put a bit of discipline on things and made sure that I got things done in a timely manner, I suppose.
Amazing.
It's gone well, actually. It's gone well. And so that was that's nearly 6 years ago, actually, the first edition was published. And then, of course, about 5 minutes after it's published, there's some changes to legislation and changes to labeling that were pretty significant. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something about this, and approached the publisher again and said, should I do a second edition with all the changes? And he said yes. So but he did it over a year ago, September 2017, we launched the second edition.
Incredible. No doubt there'll be many more editions to come. So, and we're talking, and we're talking just before exactly that there does seem to be a lack of support and advice for food businesses in Ireland, which is quite incredible when you think of.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'd say actually is that there's a lot of information out there, but it wasn't really easily accessible, is what I'd say. So you've got the Food Standards Agency, say, in the North and the UK, and you've got in Ireland, you've got the Food Safety Authority, and they both have websites. And you'll find when you go in there, there's a lot of information, but it's knowing where to begin and how to translate that into something understandable. And it's fine if you're from the industry and you can kind of understand the language and the terminology, but if you're not, it's very off-putting, especially when the first line they say of their startup advice is first familiarize yourself with the legislation. And I always say that sends people running for the hills. So it's just not that easy to understand. So it was really for me to try and be that broker, if you like, in between the agencies and the legislation and the person that's coming from almost zero in a lot of cases.
Amazing, excellent. And what do you see as the common challenges then that companies may have starting off?
Well, I mean, people get into the food business because of their love of food. That's the first thing. So very often making the foods is the easy bit for them. The bigger issue is very often around scale, about trying to scale up and grow the business and having facilities and resources to do that, whether it's money or space. But I think the bigger issue from day one almost is distribution. You know, that's the hardest thing. How do you get your foods from you to somebody else's kitchen cupboard or to the shops? I mean, that really is a major challenge. So you're trying to run a food business and a distribution business at the same time. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about people sharing distribution routes and everything, but that takes quite a lot of work, you know, to try and cooperate with other producers. It's another job. I mean, you're already the job of production, operations, sales, marketing, finance, everything yourself in the beginning. And then trying to do distribution is really difficult. So I do know there's a few programs running around the country trying to look at that to see if there's some way of helping people collaborate or having sort of distribution hubs. But so far, there really isn't anything. It's just down to all the individuals. And then the other thing is trying to find a distributor. It's like a black art, actually. There's lots listed. You know, you can go into the Board BA website and there might be some distributors listed, although they seem to have taken down that list lately for some reason. I suspect it's because it's nearly so hard to keep it up to date the whole time. And then you'll see vans on the road and you'll Google them and they don't exist online because a lot of these people are just a man with a van and they don't have a website. They don't have a business as such. Their business is coming to them by word of mouth. And like one of the pieces of advice I always give to producers, if you see a van parked outside a shop, go up and say, who are you? You know, what are you delivering? Where do you go? And have you got any space you could take me on? Because I'll tell you, van drivers, truck drivers are always looking for more produce to carry. Always.
What a good bit of advice there. I wouldn't have even thought of it. That's amazing. So no, you're totally right. So everyone's so passionate and the focus on producing amazing food, but actually then to get it into shops or get it sold is I agree. I know some clients, it's a big challenge. So is it getting into a shop, is that the target for most people? And there's different types of shops. You've got the local shops and the international supermarkets. Is that a good goal for all food producers?
Well, what I always say to people in the beginning is think about what you want out of this. Is this a lifestyle business? Is this something that's going to kind of add to your income? Are you doing it for pure enjoyment, or do you really want to grow this and make this majorly commercially successful? Obviously, everybody wants to pay their bills is the first thing, but people start off very often in somewhere like a farmer's market or a country market just to test the waters, and it's a good way for people to kind of just set up a stall. You're not having to make any investment in a van or worry about sort of meeting a buyer in a supermarket. You can just see how it goes. People do some testing trials, if you like, on your customers and talk to them and see what the feedback is like, and it's a good way to start. I must say though, the farmers market is not for the faint-hearted, because you know, in weather like today where it's 2 degrees outside, it's pretty cold standing there, so you'll see your farmers market stall holders in plenty of layers and fingerless gloves trying to run their businesses, and you're having to set up and take down every week. So it's not just easy. Everything is work. I must say the food business is always work, but it's a good way to start. And then the next thing, of course, is try and get into your local shops. And again, I'm a big believer in just go up to your local shop, wherever somebody knows you, and say, look, I am making apple tarts, say, or jam, or whatever it happens to be. You know, would you be interested in taking in something local? And most of the local shops are delighted to take something local. In fact, some of the big supermarket chains, you know, say to their franchisees, we want you to source locally. We want you to maybe have 10% or 15% of all your foods to be sourced locally. And that's a kind of a condition of having the franchise. So they're very often very, you know, keen for you to try something out. But of course, as with anything, you need to see, are they already selling this? Why would they take yours in? Do a bit of sussing it out first, walk around and see, you know, is there a gap in this shop for mine? Maybe there's something else in the next town, but there mightn't be anything in your town. So, you know, just go up and ask, what's the worst can happen? But it's hard. Like, it's not easy just to walk in, especially producers are so personally connected with their foods. Like, it's they haven't distanced themselves. And I've had more than one producer phone me from the car in tears saying, you know, they turn me down and they don't take my food. And I'm like, it's not you. It's not your food. It's not personal. It's just business. And people kind of harden up, they toughen up, and it gets easier as confidence grows. But always start small, start with your local, if that just to get you going. The next stage then, of course, is trying to get into supermarkets, if that's what you want to do. So again, some of the supermarkets have got good producer development programs. Like I know SuperValue has 2 that they run, and I've delivered both of them over the last number of years. One is Food Starter, which is for startups, and then the next one is Food Academy for established food businesses that want to try and stop going shop to shop and try and get a kind of a bigger spread of SuperValue shops across the region. And that's a great program. Actually, it's great. I know companies have gone from, or producers have gone from like 10 shops to 65 shops in 6 months. But the other thing I'd say to producers is kind of be careful what you wish for too, because suddenly, how are you going to get your foods to 65 shops? Have you thought about your distribution? So there's always something. There's always the next thing you have to think about.
Yeah, and as you're explaining that and explaining the growth there, I'm thinking, oh my, the kitchen manufacturing then changes from, if you're in 65 shops, all of a sudden you need to start thinking of scaling that up as well.
Oh yeah, well, you're long out of your kitchen at that stage, I can tell you. So I mean, your home kitchen is fine for startup, but most home kitchens are grand for starting up actually, unless you're doing something high risk. So meat, dairy, or prepared salads, that's no go usually in the kitchen. But what I'd always say to people again is, don't assume that your kitchen isn't good enough. Ring your local environmental health officer, whether that's in your council in the north or whether it's in the HSE here in the Republic, and ask them, have a chat with them on the phone, tell them what you're going to do, and they'll come out and have a look at your kitchen and decide whether or not your kitchen's suitable, because they want to see every individual kitchen and they want to meet every individual to see if that person is somebody they would be happy with being in the food sector. What I will say is, do not start without checking in with your EHO, your environmental health officer, because as they say, they will find you, as the man says. They'll track you down in a shop or a market and they'll say, who are you? We don't know who you are. You're not registered. So you're better not to start on the back foot, if you like. But then if you start to grow, what they might say to you is, your home kitchen's fine, but we're going to cap the level of your production to a certain volume, which isn't great. It doesn't work for most producers. And then at that stage, you need to move out, either find a unit or build something behind your house or rent a premises. And that's where things really, that's the leap actually producers find difficult. It's making that leap from the kitchen to investing in rental or in building.
Amazing. So interesting. And you mentioned actually there, and I guess we're checking in the shops to make sure if someone else is already there, or if there's demand for what you're offering. And I guess and recently we've seen a massive growth in a lot of different trends. Every year it's a new one, or every 6 months. So I think at the moment it's obviously veganism and vegan, and there's probably, you tell me, there's probably loads more. Do food producers need to be aware of this? Is that something that's impacting food business?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, watching trends, monitoring consumer trends is essential. It really is. I mean, health is a big one. Always healthy eating has been a huge one for the last 3 years. Healthy eating on the go is a big one. So can you eat something healthy while you're out and about, or whether it's dashboard dining in your car or desk dining at your desk? Although, you should be getting up and having a walk. It's not something to really be recommended, but healthy on the go or healthy convenience is a big trend, and has been and will continue to be. Veganism is fine. It'll still stay niche though. There's no question it'll not grow that fast. But what I think has started in the last couple of years is protein fortified foods. So foods that are higher in protein, like even protein yogurts, protein snacks, protein drinks, they're continuing to grow as people are looking for some sort of, well, what's happening, I think, is they've moved from the health market, if you like, the athletes market or the elite athletes market, into more mainstream. And bigger producers are seeing this as a really big marketing opportunity for them. As the average person who might go out for a walk is looking for a protein shake. So there definitely is scope for that. The other thing I think that'll happen this year is really emphasizing on packaging and on sustainability in the environment. And I think the big push against single-use plastics is going to impact on the food sector. No question, actually. I think that's definitely going to happen this year.
Incredible. And I'm thinking of sugar in the last couple of years, as you mentioned, the health focus. So removing that from recipes, but it's very interesting. It's not even just the food. We have to think of the packaging as well. And of course, it's massive at the moment. Yeah. Never.
But it is,
even
the thing is, you take sugar out of something, you put something else in, so consumers are kind of very demanding, really. Like, you take the fat out of something, you put something else in to give the food the texture and the flavor that the consumer is looking for, and then they can start complaining about additives. Some consumers like to have it both ways. They really do. So it's up to the food sector to try and meet that demand, and that's why there's always scope for development, ingredient development, and trying to get something, foods that will give the consumer what they're looking for in terms of flavor and texture, but without having any of the negative effects maybe of some of the ingredients that might be in there.
Incredible. So you really need a strategy when you're going
Yeah.
to launch a food business. Is it something that you advocate then?
Oh no, definitely. And you know, I see too many people trying to do development, product development, and this actually probably is a lesson across all sectors anyway. And they sort of take a project on board and they work away on this project, and either they don't do their, you know, their time bound strategy and have a plan and have steps and say we're going to have this done in 6 months, or they stick with it for too long, and if it's not working, they don't dump it soon enough. They become too invested in it, and it's kind of like a vanity project that they won't let go. And you really need to say, you know, we've invested too much time, effort, and money here. We need to let this go now, or we need to really give it attention for 3 months and either make a decision at that point. So people are inclined to let things drift or hang on to things for too long, kind of both sides of the coin. But certainly product development always. I mean, even if you're a small producer of, say, pies or something, you want to be doing seasonal varieties apart from anything else. You know, maybe trying to reduce the fat in your crust, or, you know, promote it as flavoursome. You know, you're not trying, everything doesn't have to be, you know, no fat, no sugar, you know, because the fat brings the flavour actually, in fairness, and fat is good for you. You need fat in your diet. But, you know, to have seasonal varieties like lamb at Easter, or something green for St. Patrick's Day, or something for Christmas, but you always have to do it. Like the example I always give to small producers is Coca-Cola, right? So Coca-Cola, one of the biggest food producers, food companies in the world, constantly innovating, spending something like 50% of their budget on marketing, you know, not underestimating, having to keep the consumer engaged all the time. So whether it's changing the shape of the bottle, putting your name on the bottle, you know, trying the half sugar green labels, which seem to die a death in Ireland, certainly, they didn't really take off. Trying different flavors. There's a new mango flavor out. I'm not sure about that one actually. You know, things come and go. Sometimes foods work. And if you ever Google actually foods that failed, you'll see all sorts of really interesting foods from big producers. So even the big guys struggle to get things to work all the time. So people shouldn't lose heart. If they try to produce something or develop something that doesn't work out, most people have a failure in their life.
Incredible. I'm going to have to check out foods that fail then in Google. That's
Yeah.
something I never wouldn't have even thought about. So you're talking about product development, back to marketing. Oh my word, there's so much that you need to think of in regard to food. And you think, again, back to people who are passionate about maybe something that they make, they don't have the experience of the food sector, and starting a business is still a good move.
I think so. I mean, I sort of remember somebody gave me advice years ago, is that you don't want to have a, you know, try not to have regrets. If you want to give it a go, give it a go, but don't, I suppose, be careful about the money you invest. Be, you know, be conscious of that. Sort of say to yourself, I'm going to have a budget for this. I'm going to give this a year or 3 years, whatever it's going to be, and see what happens, and really focus in that 3 years. And that's why I think having a plan is always good. This is the action plan. Actually, people can download it from my website. It's kind of a 12-stage, I think I've got 12 steps, I can't remember. I keep changing it, so I'm not sure of the 12 at the minute. But this action plan they can download, and just kind of keeps them on the straight and narrow things you have to think about. Think about your premises, think about your legislation, your packaging, product development, distribution. So I'd like to, you know, to get it out of your head on paper is always good advice, even with business planning, any kind of strategy. And as I say to people, don't be put off by the word strategy. Strategy just says plan. That's all it is. Just where I want to be, where am I, where do I want to get to, and how am I going to get there? So just to have something that you're not trying to remember all the things you have to do, you have it written down, and you just kind of start taking things off a list. But
Amazing.
definitely having some sort of a plan is essential.
Very good, excellent. And you see the food industry, do you think there's going to be a lot of change in the future, or it'll keep changing? Will we get to the stage that...
I think it will continue to develop. I mean, there's been a strategy in Ireland in the last 20 years to reduce sugar in a lot of things. So the industry has reduced sugar and salt over 10 and 20 years, just kind of incremental reductions. It doesn't really get a lot of coverage, but it has been done. Like the Irish food and drink industries, say within IBEC, have been working on that a lot. And there's good reports actually people can have a look at if they're interested in looking at it. So it's something people are working on the whole time. Food producers always respond to their consumers, because ultimately, if people aren't enjoying the food or buying the food, or are hearing negative things about the food, they won't buy it. And ultimately, that's what people are there for. They want people to enjoy and buy and enjoy their food. So there's always a job of work to be done, whether it's new products, new ingredients, providing healthy alternatives, or even explaining what's in the foods to people, that people understand what's in there is safe to eat, if people aren't concerned about ingredients. There's a lot of misinformation out there, as we said at the beginning, and people need to try and inform themselves and reassure themselves, I suppose, that foods are there, our foods are safe to eat is the key thing. The other thing, of course, that happens with the internet is people will Google we'll go back to bread again, right? And it'll bring them to American websites. American bread is very different to bread in Ireland and England. It really is, you know, chalk and cheese, honestly. There's ingredients approved in the States that we don't want here. And don't even get me started on Brexit and what that might bring. But, you know, that's the B word, you can't say it. But, you know, I have to say the food standards in the EU are among the highest in the world. So people should be content with themselves. The food produced in the EU is safe to eat and not to be worrying about it.
Amazing, excellent. So no, really good to know. And you're right. I know I've been in the US and haven't even chocolate. Not that I ever eat chocolate, but it's amazing the differences just between here and there. You'd never.
Flavors even, yeah. I mean, it's not. It's a different. I suppose they're different. I don't think the quality is as good. I honestly don't. I spent a lot of time in America at one stage myself, and in the Midwest, in Iowa, which is not a place people usually aspire to go to, but the company I worked for was based there. And what struck me always was, first of all, the portion sizes were just out of this world, like off the graph. And then the meat was really delicious, I have to say. So beef steaks and pork chops really delicious. But then I realized their hormone levels are quite high, and they're not grass fed. They're all indoors all year round. So I was thinking, no, I'm thinking for my grass fed beef and my controls that we have in the EU. So it's a different market. It definitely is. People shouldn't underestimate markets, like, you know, localization of markets. And we would do a bit of work with people on that as well for exporting, to try and see what do different countries want, what are the different cultures, what kinds of things they're looking for, not to assume anything just because they all speak English, for example.
Amazing. No, that's incredible. And you think again, yeah, look at Ireland and what we have here, and so many natural sources of food, which is incredible, and in high demand in export markets, there's no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ireland exports a huge amount of dairy to Nigeria, and they used to export to Russia, but the embargo then in Russia stopped that. But, you know, so there's a huge amount of dairy produce going to Nigeria every year, actually, through Oonagh, which would have been, what was it before? National Dairy No, I can't remember what they were called before, but you have to fix that bit now. Anyway, so they export a lot of dairy produce to Africa, and it's major. So Kerry Gold is an international brand and is recognised internationally. And Kerry Gold is not from one particular dairy, it's the Irish national brand. So you'll see Kerry Gold produced by lots of different dairies around the country, whether it's Orivo up here in the northwest or anywhere at all. Actually, they're all producing Kerry Gold.
It's incredible, yeah. And as you said, it's amazing to see the Irish brands going out and claiming their stake around the world. So it's brilliant to see. So amazing, and long may that continue. And I guess maybe that's a key point for Ireland to keep reinforcing and the message out there back to how we do produce our food here and our focus on quality and nature. So fingers crossed that it continue to grow.
No, definitely. And I have to say, Board B do a great job in promoting producers for export. But then to get onto Board B's client list, if you like, you have to be turning over about 100,000 a year. So small producers won't be getting on that too quickly, but they might aspire to that. But certainly Board B run fantastic Meet the Buyer events. And I think Kyo's Crisps recently announced that one of those Meet the Buyer events, they've now been picked for one of the big international airlines. So that's huge for them. And these guys started off as potato farmers, you know, now they're selling all over the world. So it's great. The Board B do a fantastic job marketing Irish food. It's just to make sure that people keep the quality up to meet those standards, because the standards are high and for good reason.
Yeah, amazing. No, brilliant, excellent. So thank you for sharing all the wealth of knowledge and tips and advice. That was incredible. So if anyone wants to reach out to you to find out more about what you do, or to actually just connect and have a chat, or even to find your book, where should they go?
Well, they'll find me on, I'm a big fan of social media, so they'll find me on Twitter at Oonagh Eats, so OONAGH Eats, and I have a blog as well, oonaghseats.com. And then I have my website for my consultancy business is alphaomegaconsultants.ie. And there's a list actually on there. You can buy the book directly, or you can get it from bookshops everywhere. But I have a list actually on the website where you can buy it online from Irish bookshops. I'm trying to promote Irish booksellers as well. You can get it on Amazon and the Book Depository too, but I'd like people to buy it online if they can from their Irish booksellers, or go into the local shops. They'll order it in free if they don't have it in stock, or they can order it directly from the website. But usually as well, I have a little window on the homepage of where I'm doing any talks. So I would do kind of training courses or public talks, and they'll find me there. But if they Google me, they'll find me. So that's the book, Money for Jam, Oonagh Monahan. So they'll Google me, they'll find me, I'm sure.
Yeah. Google finds everyone.
Eventually, whether you like it or not.
Oh, that's it. No hiding. So, no, brilliant. Thank you again for your chat today and your time. And underneath the video, anyone's watching the video or listening, listening to the audio, you'll find links to all those places that Oonagh's just mentioned. And again, thank you for your time, and thank you for watching the video. So do please check out Oonagh's website and do check out the book as well, especially if you're a food producer. So loads of interesting facts and advice there shared. And this is Kieran from Profile 3, the content marketing agency, coming to you from Belfast. And hopefully we'll see you in tomorrow's video. So thank you again.